Hi, everyone. I'm Mariko Fairly. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to be talking about how to support your child's socialization and grow their social skills. I'm so excited that you're all here. Hi, Hadar. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you. Thank you for being here, Mariko.
Absolutely. So I will tell you a little bit about myself before we jump into our talk. I am a parent coach here on ParentGood, and my background is in psychology. I have a bachelor's in psychology from UCLA, and my master's is in special education. And I have a board certification as a behavior analyst. And I spent most of my career, about 17 years of my career, working with autistic children and children, with developmental disabilities. And then I started my own practice, and I work with all different kinds of families to address challenging behaviors that, come up in daily life: tantrums, hitting, sibling challenges, potty training, sleep challenges, that type of thing. I am a mom. I have 2 kids, a 7-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. So I am right there in the trenches with you guys. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me. Tonight, we're going to be kind of talking about how to grow our kids' social skills. And I think this is a really big question that I get these days because of the pandemic, which is now going on 3 years. A lot of parents are really concerned about their children being able to socialize and making sure that they have the right social skills to be able to go out into the world and go out into school and be successful. And, if you really think about it, if you have a second grader, for example, the last normal year that they had was probably preschool. So, that really puts it into perspective, right? 3 years is a really, really long time to either be doing distance learning or to not be able to have play dates, or maybe, you haven't been able to go to that mommy and me class, or, do some of the things that you would normally like to do to support your child's socialization. So we're going to kind of talk about ways that we can do that both now and sort of hopefully as the world opens up in the next, several weeks and months and years. So socialization, that's sort of a catch-all, and I want to break that down a little bit. What is socialization? So it's really the ability to interact with others, right? And in others in your family, in your community, and in society. And why is socialization important? Well, it teaches us the values that exist in that community and that society, the behaviors that are acceptable in that group. It teaches us, how to interact, how to reciprocate, how to have impulse control, not to say everything that comes out of our mouth, not to do everything that our body wants to do if it's not the right thing at the right time. And it really teaches us how to contribute and fit into the world around us. So that's why we want our kids to learn social skills from a really, really young age. Now, every family and community and society might have different expectations of what appropriate and inappropriate social skills look like. So I think that's something that's really important to remember. And when I'm working with a family, that's also something that I really try to keep in mind is what is appropriate for this family, for this community. And I would say that even though there are general sort of norms and developmental norms, every child develops at their own pace. So maybe, your child started waving and saying hi to people at 12 months, but, your neighbor's child started doing it at 9 months, or maybe they started doing it at 2 years old. So, it's important to sort of take these developmental norms and milestones with a grain of salt, and just know that generally, if there's no other concern for your child, they're going to do things in their own time. Okay. Okay. Oh, I forgot to mention, my apologies. If you have any questions or comments, you can feel free to drop them in the comment box. And then Hadar is going to help me, make sure I answer all of those at the end. I'll also leave time at the end for you guys to just unmute or put your questions in the question box. Okay. So I want to talk about shy children, because this is something that comes up a lot in my work. Is a lot of parents identify their children, or maybe even themselves, as being shy and have some concerns about it. And so I guess what I want to say is, shy is not bad. Shy is just a characteristic, and it's not a bad thing. We can't all be social butterflies. If everyone was the class clown, that would make things a little bit challenging, for a teacher. And so I really want to sort of encourage us as parents not to label our kids as shy or really outgoing or really chatty or good or bad or difficult. Let's really look at characteristics and how we can support our kids and how they feel. So, is our child feeling nervous? Is our child feeling scared? Are they maybe just really calm and they're not saying a lot when they enter a room? How can we support them based on how they're feeling, as opposed to just labeling, oh, my child is shy? And one of the reasons why I don't like to label kids that way is because how we label them is how they will start to label themselves. And so if we just say, oh, my kid they don't like to play with other kids, they're just really shy, or they don't respond when other people talk to them, that gets into their head. And then it becomes, well, are they really that way? Or have we labeled them that way so they just assume that role? So I think it's really important to just sort of meet our kids where they are. And I like to refer to shy children as slow to warm. Maybe it just takes them a little time to warm up in a new environment or to new people. And that's okay. That's totally fine. That's just maybe they're feeling a little bit introverted, and maybe that's their personality trait. Okay. So one way that we can support kids who are slow to warm is by offering alternatives to vocalizing. So how often do maybe you go into a birthday party and you have a child who's like hiding behind you and doesn't want to come out. People are saying hello, people are trying to greet them, kids are maybe asking them to play, and they don't want to. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. So one simple way that we can teach our kids to respond, because responding is important, that's part of socializing, is to teach them an alternative to saying hi. Maybe they can wave. Maybe they give knuckles. Maybe they give a high five. We don't have to force them to say or do anything. We can just model it for them. And I think, we don't want to pressure our kids to show affection to other people. So, it's a lot of times, you hear things like, oh, go give grandma a hug or a kiss. Or great Aunt Mary, who you've never met before, go give her a kiss. Well, that is, we want to teach our kids that they are in control of their bodies and they can set boundaries for what they're comfortable with. And so it's really important for them to have an alternative to showing affection or saying hello by using a nonverbal cue. Okay. Another way that I like to support kids in this way is teaching them and using this phrase, choose how you want to say hi or bye. So instead of telling them, go give so-and-so a hug or go say bye, choose how you want to say goodbye. Do you want to wave? Do you want to blow a kiss? Do you want to, shake hands or give a thumbs up? Something like that. There are other ways that kids can communicate effectively. Excuse me. I think these nonverbal responses can really show responsiveness, interaction, and politeness, if that's what's important to you. So consider in every situation an alternative behavior that they can do. And I think it's important. We don't have to speak for our kids. A lot of times, we as parents, we feel some embarrassment or frustration or anxiety when somebody talks to our kids and they don't respond. I have one of those kids myself, and I feel nervous inside when that's happening. So we can model for them. I'm great. I'm glad. How do you want to say goodbye? Thank you. So, we can model for them, and you can model the behavior in the moment. Hi, Aunt Mary. Nice to see you. And if they reply and your child imitates you, great. They're learning that skill in real time. But if they don't, you don't have to say anything else. You don't have to follow up. If the person says, oh, what grade are you in now? And your child doesn't respond, I think a lot of times we pressure our kids, hey, you need to answer, you need to answer. I think they probably know that they need to answer and they're not yet comfortable. So maybe you can give them an alternative thing to do. Hold up 2 fingers for second grade, or say, I need a little more time, or maybe we can talk later. I think that the last sort of option for me is to respond for my child, because I really want them to learn that when someone speaks to them, that they need to respond in some way. And that's just something that happens over time. Okay. Another phrase that I like to use is let me know when you're ready. So again, you're going into a party, a larger social group, and your child is hanging back. I was trying to read the note. Okay, so if you're going into a social setting, your child is hanging back, they're not ready to go play, just tell them, you can stay with me until you're ready. And then, maybe walk around with them, show them what's going on. Oh, look, your friend is over there playing. Oh, I see grandma sitting on the couch. Ooh, they have chicken nuggets for dinner. Just kind of point out what's going on, and they will start to open up a little bit over time and likely then be ready to interact with other people. So you can stay with me until you're ready, or let me know when you're ready. This is also a really good time to model empathy for your child. So sometimes I might say something like, gosh, there are a lot of people here. Sometimes I feel a little bit nervous when there are a lot of people. It might take me a little time to warm up too. And that will validate your child's feelings and let them know that it's okay. Okay. So in a group, you can facilitate some social interactions. So if you have a birthday party or a play date, maybe you sit down with a group of kids and you comment on what the other kids are doing. Or maybe you bring up a conversation or take out a game that your child is really interested in and really good at. This helps make them feel more comfortable and more confident. So you can also sort of point out things that your child is doing. You don't have to sort of lavish them with praise, but maybe make a comment like, oh, I noticed that you sat down next to Elizabeth, or Michael had a really big smile on his face when you played blocks with him. And just kind of point out sort of social aspects of being there, right? Looking at other people, referencing other people, how they're feeling, how they're behaving. Oh, Mrs. Song, she smiled when you waved back at her. Those are really important things so that they recognize that their actions, result in other people's responses, right? Or it impacts how other people feel as well. Okay. I think one other tip I want to share just about having a shy or slow to warm child is that having really good communication with the other caregivers in that child's life is really important. So, every year at the beginning of the year, talk to your child's teacher about the supports that they need in their classroom. Maybe it's helpful to pair them up with a buddy. Maybe it's helpful to not call on them first. Maybe it's helpful to let them be the line leader for the day, and that helps them warm up. There are different things that you're going to find over the course of your child's educational career that really benefit them. And, each teacher has a different approach and a different philosophy. So it's just really good to have communication with them, and they may share some insights with you. Oh, I noticed when I partnered them up with, this child, they were responding and they were really engaged. That's great. Maybe that's a great kid to have a play date with. So definitely keep talking to the other teachers and caregivers in your child's life. Okay, what about older kids if they continue being uncomfortable around big crowds? I think there are a lot of adults who feel that way too. I would say, break down what the concern is. Is the concern that they're not responding at all to other people? Or are they just maybe not initiating a lot of conversations? Because there are a lot of people who kind of in a group of people talking, they're going to be hanging back and they're more going to be listening and maybe, just kind of like nodding and And then there are a couple people who might be at the forefront of the conversation. So I would sort of break down what part is concerning to you, and then we can kind of talk about that if you want to put more notes in the box. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so some additional tips for how to support a child who is slow to warm. This is my recommendation for every parent and child, to try to have one-to-one time with your child every day. I know when school's in full swing and you don't feel like you have a ton of time in general because you're racing around to drop off and pick up in class and soccer practice, and you have to do all the dinner and bedtime routine, it can be hard to fit it in. But if you can squeeze in 10 minutes a day of one-on-one uninterrupted time, phones away, no siblings, just hanging out with your child, let them take the lead with play. If they want to play Barbies, you play Barbies. If they want to build something, build something. If they want to do art, do that, without a lot of direction or correction. That's going to support your connection with your child and your bond, but it's also going to give them an opportunity to open up, because the more comfortable, the more time they have with you, the more they might say like, hey, something happened at school today and I was really uncomfortable, or I felt really sad when my friend didn't want to play with me. You need to know about those situations in order to best support your child. So one-on-one time every day. Another thing that you can do is set up one-to-one play dates. So kids are uncomfortable in large groups, but if you can identify a good peer match for them, ideally it's in their class, that person's in their class because they're going to spend more time together. But somebody they get along with or comfortable with, and maybe is a little bit more vocal than they are, because then they'll be modeling the social behaviors that you want your child to demonstrate. But I would try to set up, if you can, a one-to-one play date at your home, ideally, because that's where your child is most comfortable. But anywhere, the park, the other child's house, it's fine. And as your child feels more comfortable with that child, you can have more and more play dates with them, branch off and go have play dates with other kids. Try to keep it one-to-one to start. That ratio is really, really important. You may start to see some more social behaviors in your child with a one-to-one ratio than you would in a large group. When your child sort of has mastered that one-to-one play date, I would actually suggest jumping up to 4 children. So instead of having 2 other kids over, have 3 other kids over. And the reason for that is kids tend to break off into pairs. And so 3 can be a crowd. And what typically happens is if your child is a little bit shy, is a little bit slow to warm, they're not very talkative, then two other kids may end up pairing off and leaving your child alone. So if you have that ratio of 2 and 2, then if these two kids play together and these two kids play together, and sometimes they all play together, you're going to have a more successful play date, most likely. Okay. Thank you, Ashley. All right. Okay, so some ideas for activities if you're on a play date or you're hosting a play date and the kids are having a hard time maintaining their interaction. So I guess we can pause here to sort of talk about what is appropriate social interaction based on age. So typically for toddlers, 1, 2, even 3 years old, age appropriate play is actually parallel play. It's sitting next to another child, doing their own thing, and not really having a lot of engagement, not really having a lot of interaction. So if your child is 3 years old and you're finding they're off, playing blocks by themselves or, building something by themselves or wanting to sort of play dolls, but not really interacting with the other child, that's pretty typical. Kids start to interact around age 3, even age 4. And one thing that's really important to remember is kids don't learn how to share until at least age 3. So I hear a lot of toddler parents say, oh, my kid doesn't share. They're having tantrums because they don't want to share their toys. Guess what? That is totally developmentally normal. Don't stress about it. Practice taking turns when you can, practice swapping toys, but forcing your child to share is not going to teach them how to share faster. It will probably just create some, protest behavior. So, when you can, if you're on a play date, have 2 of something, one for your child, one for the other child, maybe set a timer, maybe take turns, or maybe be okay letting that child decide when they want to give up that toy. Okay, so I just want to say that is totally developmentally normal. And then kids, once they're in school, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, that's when they really start to interact and play together more. So you'll have more of that back and forth conversation with them play. And a lot of times it might just be commenting. My guy's going up here, my guy's going down the slide. And that's fine. When you're playing with your child, just try to imitate what they're doing. You don't need to try to make them do anything more than is developmentally appropriate. Just kind of watch how they play and join in. And maybe they'll respond to you. Maybe they'll initiate a new action. But try to do some of that in your one-on-one playtime. Okay. I wanted to share some ideas for play dates or social settings if your child is having a hard time interacting with other kids. So a lot of times, kids' attention spans are pretty short. A 3-year-old may only be able to do something for 5 or 10 minutes, and then they're on to the next thing. And so when you're having a play date, a lot of times for younger kids, you kind of need to structure it for maximum success. And so what I would do is kind of stagger activities that require a lot of interaction with activities that don't. So maybe, you have some cars set out and they're playing with cars, maybe next to each other in parallel. Maybe they're crashing into each other. And then after cars, maybe they're going to do something like go outside and do something physical, kick a ball, go for a walk, alternate different types of activities where there is going to require a lot of talking versus no talking at all. So things where they don't necessarily have to talk would be having a snack, watching a show, going outside, doing something like art or Play-Doh. There should be alternatives for your child or the other child to not have to constantly talk. Okay. If you are going to a new place or maybe going on a play date, it's always good to prep your child for what's going to happen. Whether your child has, your concerns with socialization or not, it's always good to prep your kids and give them the rundown, right? Who, what, where, when, why, how. Who's going to be there? What are we going to do? What you're going to wear, what you're going to eat while you're there. If it's a birthday party and you know that Anna and Elsa are going to be there and your child may have a hard time with that, tell them. Don't let that be a surprise, right? Let them know when they're singing happy birthday, it might get a little bit loud. And give them an alternative to do if they're feeling uncomfortable. They can take a break. They can ask you for a break. They can ask for a hug. They can ask for help. They can ask to, step away. All of those things are okay, right? So we don't expect them that they have to handle everything and tolerate everything. We want them to be able to identify, oh gosh, that makes me uncomfortable. And what can I do about it, right? What's that next step? What's that problem-solving step? I need help. I need a break. I need a drink of water. You can support them in that way. I think that's a really beneficial life skill. A lot of times, in class, did you ever see those kids? Maybe you were that kid who needed to get up and get a drink of water or get up and go to the restroom. Those are really healthy, appropriate, socially appropriate ways to sort of escape for a minute, to get out of there. And we want to teach our kids those skills from a really young age. Okay. One strategy for prepping your kids for what's to come is talking about it, of course. But if they're really young, or maybe they learn better sort of with hands-on activities, you can role play. So bring out their dolls or their figurines and pretend that Barbie's going to a birthday party or the dinosaur is having a play date. Those are really good ways to teach your kids what's going to happen and then how they might respond in a given situation. So your doll or your figurine can feel sad because they don't want to play with the other kids, or that one child took their toy, and then have them act out how they would respond in that situation. This is where we do a lot of teaching. You can do a lot of sort of pre-teaching and pre-coaching to help make that real life situation go a little bit more smoothly. Okay. I am a big fan of social stories, and if your child gets any kind of screen time, I guarantee you there is a show out there that addresses your child's particular social challenge. I love Daniel Tiger for any toddlers or preschoolers. There's just so many great episodes where they talk about how Daniel or another character might be feeling and what they can do when they're feeling that way. And then if you can't find a book or a show that addresses it, make your own story where your child or their favorite character is the main character, and talk about, you can write it out, you can draw it out, you can put it on a whiteboard. It can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be, but write out a story about what feels hard for that child. Maybe they don't want to respond when people talk to them. So the social story can talk about what they can do instead in a given situation. Or if your child is one of those kids who has a hard time with sharing and it's age appropriate, then you can put that into a story. Sometimes I don't like to share my toys with my friends. Sometimes I want to play by myself. All of those things are totally fine and totally appropriate. And then you can expand when I feel this way, I can, find my own toys, take a 5-minute break, ask someone else to play. There's lots of different things. I think bullying and feeling, unhappy in a friendship is a really good way to address through social stories. So, my friend told me that they weren't my friend anymore. You can talk about that verbally or write it out in a story. What, gosh, how did that make you feel? What could you do in this situation, so that when it happens in real life, they're a little bit more prepared. Okay. One way that I really love to support our children in their social growth is to find something that they're interested in, find something that they're really good at, and enroll them in a class for that. So maybe your child seems really interested in art. Can you find an art class or a cooking class? Maybe, a lot of times our kids have a hard time with team sports. So if team sports aren't their thing, you can try for an individual sport like golf or tennis or martial arts. And there's still like a team atmosphere, gymnastics, swimming, like they're still going to be around other kids. So they're still going to be able to observe other kids in a social setting. They'll still have to practice some responding and some social skills in that setting, but without the pressure of having to perform for another group. Because I think that is what becomes really challenging for some kids. So find something they're good at, find something they're interested in. If none of the things I mentioned seems to fit your child, consider something like Girl Scouts or Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts. That is a small group, relatively, right? Usually like 12 kids. And, everybody is facilitated by parents and everyone tends to be really warm and welcoming. So I would try to find your child's niche. It might take a few different activities. Finally, we found the right dance class or the right dance teacher to help support my child. But you're going to find something, and that's a really, really great way to get them to start practicing some of these responding skills, and maybe they'll even start initiating with others. Okay. When we are sort of noticing in a group setting that our child is starting to open up, I think it's really important to acknowledge it. And, we can't expect our child to go from, standing quietly, not responding to anybody, to sort of being the class clown or the class president. And so it's going to be a process, and it's going to be a lot of baby steps to get there. So try to acknowledge that. You don't need to sort of lavish praise on them, but, just know that they're trying really hard. This is probably a really hard skill for them. And it's important to sort of praise the process and their effort and the little baby steps that you're seeing, and have age-appropriate expectations for what your child is going to do. So again, if your 2 or 3-year-old isn't sharing, that's okay. That's very typical, very common. If your 5 or 6-year-old isn't always responding when somebody talks to them, that's also pretty typical. Okay, so we just need to have an understanding of where our kids are and meet them where they are and support them. The more validated and supported they feel and safe, the more likely they're going to open up over time. And we want to create interactions that are really fun and for them, right? So they need to be motivated to socialize. If we're always dragging them to, birthday parties that are of no interest for them and are really difficult for them, that's not going to make a social setting really motivating for them. So think about things that they enjoy, maybe reduce the number of people that are there and try to build up, right? Just that's part of the baby steps. That's part of the process. Okay. One of the things that I wanted to address is bullying and how to teach sort of assertiveness and self-advocacy skills. So, a lot of times I think we expect our kids to comply with everything that we say, right? We're the parents, they're the child. And when we say, okay, it's time to brush your teeth, we expect them to stop what they're doing, walk to the bathroom, and brush their teeth. okay, it's time for bed. It's time to get dressed. We give a lot of demands throughout the day without even realizing it. And that's our job, right? Our job is to sort of guide and support. But if we want our kids to be able to say, no, I don't like that if a child pushes them, or to say, hey, that's mine, give it back when a child takes their toy. We as parents have to be comfortable with our child every once in a while saying no to us. They might do it in a polite way. No, thank you. I don't want to do that. Not right now. I need more time, mommy. Those are all phrases that we can teach our kids. But if we want our kids to assert themselves, to be able to stand up for themselves in a situation that's making them feel uncomfortable, we have to let them do it with us. We have to let them do that with their siblings. And so if you're seeing some sibling squabbles, for example, instead of just running in and trying to fix the problem for them, maybe just hang back and observe. See what the interaction is. See if they can solve it on their own. If you need to, I always say, be the sportscaster. Narrate what's happening. Don't be the referee. Don't pick sides. Don't say, you're right, you're wrong. You shouldn't have done this. You did this. Just kind of hang back and say, I can see you guys both want the same toy. Like, how can we work this out? As opposed to just saying, nope, I'm taking the toy away. Or, nope, she had it first, give it back, right? Like, they have to work that out. Those are really important social scenarios that if you weren't there, if that happened at school or on a play date, they would have to navigate on their own. Okay. All right. I think that I mentioned a few phrases, but I'll just repeat them again. Things that we can teach our kids to say and allow them to say to us and to other people. No, thank you. I don't like that. I'm not comfortable. I don't want to do that. I need more time. I need help. I need a break. Those are all really socially appropriate requests that our kids should be able to make. And when you can, allow them and grant them. If you have a child who maybe is, feeling uncomfortable or, being bullied in some way, I always say, first they should try to address it themselves. Tell the other child using their strong voice, try to coach your kids to use a strong voice. I don't like that. Stop it. If that doesn't work, if they can ignore, great. But if not, then they go find somebody else to play with, or they go find, a safe adult, a trusted adult that they can talk to. And again, you're going to be that person too. You're there supporting them every day. You're going to have your one-on-one time with them. They'll start to open up a little bit. But if you're experiencing bullying, and if your child is, please feel free to put it in the question box and let me know what exactly the scenario is, and we can kind of break it down a little bit. Always talk to the teacher, always talk to the principal. There are ways to support kids in schools. I think a lot of schools these days, especially with COVID, when we kind of come out of this, they're going to probably have a lot more social opportunities, a lunch buddy, small social circles that maybe the speech teacher is leading. There are going to be ways to support your kids if they need it. Okay. And then one last tip, and I'm going to open it up to questions, so feel free to put them in the box now. I'm really big on either having family meetings or having like a debriefing session at the end of every day. So maybe at tuck-in every night, you sit with your child just for a few minutes before bedtime. It's such a great time to connect. Bedtime is the longest separation that our kids are away from us. And so it's really a time to calm down, come together, and that's maybe where they open up to you. So debrief with them. Tell me something good that happened today. Tell me something that was hard that happened today. Maybe they'll share with you, I felt sad when, or I was really mad when. And you can share your own experiences too. I think that can be really helpful. But making sure that you carve out a few minutes every day for that debriefing time, especially if you have a child who is a little bit slow to warm, isn't very social, and you have those concerns. Don't bombard them with questions right after they got home from school. Like, who did you play with? What did you do at recess? How did you do on your math test? Give them some time to decompress. Let them open up to you, between when they get home from school and bedtime. And then if it hasn't happened yet, then you can kind of make bedtime, make it part of your routine, make it part of how they calm down and get through and end their day. So that is all that I had planned to discuss. Ashley is asking, can you share a good way to handle when a child isn't being kind to your child in front of you and their parent isn't addressing it? For example, the kid is saying, I won't play with you, and the other parent says nothing. Yeah, that's a great question. So kind of like what we talked about, we want our kids to be able to express themselves. And it may be uncomfortable for us. And in this situation, in Ashley's example, it's our child who may be the hurt one. But I think what we need to do is not sort of impose our reaction and our emotions on that scenario. Ask the child how they feel or what they want to do. So the other child says, I won't play with you. See what your child wants to do. Okay, Joey, Mikey's not ready to play right now. What did you want to do? And maybe he'll come up with his own idea. Maybe he needs you to give him a choice. If he has feelings about it, if he's feeling sad about it, I think it's okay to acknowledge that. Oh, it's hard when our friends don't want to play. And then shift, give them an option. Do you need a hug? Okay, what would you like to play? So-and-so's over there in the sandbox. Would you like to join them? Would you like to do art here? Right? Like this is such a great learning opportunity for our kids to learn coping skills, right? So I think coping is twofold. The first one is being okay with, feeling how they're feeling, and then dealing with it. How do we solve that problem? How do we work through this hard feeling? So hopefully that answered your question. Does anyone else have a scenario that has come up with their child that they weren't sure about, or any questions for how to deal with any social behavior, social scenario? You can feel free to unmute or type it. I'm just going to scroll through my notes real quick to make sure that I didn't miss anything that I wanted to say.
Hi, Mariko.
Hi.
I'd love to ask a question.
Yes.
My son, he has this situation where some kids in school calling him names when they're playing in the recess, and he goes to the teacher usually. He says that it doesn't like that, but he has a bigger sister here at home, and I let them fight whenever they do, but she's like bossing him around permanently. So I think he didn't, he didn't find this strength yet to stand up for himself.
Mm-hmm.
And also in school is being the weak one, like time after time. So he's going to the teacher, like you've suggested, or he's telling me after. But I admit, I try to tell him maybe to call them names back, but he said that he won't do it because it's not nice. And he's like, Mom, it's not what we do. So he's like, I go to the teacher. So he knows better than me, but I don't know. I really want to teach him self-advocacy, to stand up for himself, and not just going to another adult to save him from this situation. Is that does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're expressing is so common, especially when you have an older sibling and that older sibling likes to tell the younger sibling what to do. They kind of get into a pattern, right? Where they're just used to being told what to do and, they may or may not follow it. At home, it's a different situation because it's a safe environment. Hopefully, they may not feel as comfortable, at school. So I would actually start at home, right? Because that's the safe environment. Can you teach him in those moments to assert himself? And what I would do is, again, I'm glad that you kind of let them duke it out a little bit, but maybe this is where you do step in and do some coaching, and you can still sort of narrate. So, hey, big sister, I guess you would say, hey, I noticed that your big sister keeps, taking your toys. What can you do about it? And go through some options with him, right? Let him decide how he wants to handle it. And here are some things that you can say. And then you can coach him through in the moment. He needs to be more comfortable just making those assertive statements. He's probably not going to start doing it at school if he's not yet doing it at home. So that's what I would say. Start at home, build up to school. And a lot of times with our kids who are having a hard time sort of, being confident and using their strong voice, giving them very short, specific, or I guess more generic phrases that they can use across different settings is going to be really helpful. So instead of trying to break it down for every scenario, a generic hey, stop it or cut it out, that's going to go a long way for him because he can use that at home. He can use that at school. He can use it on the bus. He can use it on a play date. Okay. And then a lot of times, right, when we're looking at challenging behaviors, we have to figure out why a person is engaging in that behavior. So a lot of times, hurt people. And that's what we see with bullying a lot, right? A bully is hurting themselves. And so they're lashing out at other kids. And so, depending on the child's age and sort of how much interaction you have, it might sound weird, but maybe asking that bully, or I hate to label a child, asking that child who is lashing out, do you want to play? Or maybe let's schedule a play date, or can the teacher help facilitate some sort of interaction with that child? Because maybe they're feeling left out and that's why they're lashing out at your child. We have to really kind of get to the nitty gritty. Is that child getting a reaction from your child? Is the best answer to teach your child to ignore it and walk away? That's where I kind of feel like I need some more information to know what's exactly going on to sort of counsel you best. Is it better to teach them to ignore? Is it better to teach them to vocalize and, tell a teacher? But those are some options for what you can do when you feel like your child is in a situation that is not ideal and comfortable for them. Okay. Any particular ideas and suggestions for brother-to-brother socialization? Oh gosh, yeah, it depends on the age, of course. I still recommend one-on-one time, so parent-child every day. Depending on what they like to do and what the age difference is, if the kids are having a hard time playing together, playing with toys, start with something that's a little bit easier. Even watching a show and having a snack together, even doing Play-Doh together. A lot of times, if maybe they can play together for a little while, and then it gets really destructive. So maybe you would set up, here's the play zone, here's the crash zone, so that when they feel like they're being destructive and maybe it turns into fighting, you say, oh, you know what? This is the play zone. If you want to crash and destroy things, you need to come over here. If you want to give me a little more information, I can give you some more suggestions. Tammy says 9 years old, was bullied on the bus ride. Two boys have scheduled a meeting to talk. What would you recommend the bullied boy to say? I love that they're going to sit down and talk. I think telling if it's a safe environment and there's an adult facilitating, even if not, encourage the child to say how they feel. When you said this, I felt this way. And can they come to some sort of understanding? I love that there's an opportunity to talk it out. Maybe they agree that they just won't interact, right? But if they're 9 years old, hopefully they can come to some sort of understanding. I would also try to see, what is that kid trying to get out of your kid by bullying him? Is he really trying to get your attention? Is he trying to get a reaction from the kids around him? Can they maybe set up a game? Can they play handball or basketball or dodgeball in a group? And it's okay if the answer is no. It's okay if the answer is we're not going to be friends, and we agree we're not going to be friends. But we want the interactions to be respectful. And so that's why I love that they're going to meet. I hope it's facilitated by an adult, or that there is an adult nearby so that they can kind of monitor that conversation. But I would keep it to sort of how that person's actions made your child feel, and how can they resolve it? Any other questions or comments? I'm just going to scroll up and make sure that I didn't miss anything. Okay. You're welcome, guys. While I'm going to wait for a couple more minutes for people to either speak up or type a question or a comment, I wanted to share that I said I'm a coach here on ParentGood, and I just got a discount code for my services. So I wanted to share that with you. I have a variety of packages. If you look on my page, I offer a free 15-minute call, and then have mini sessions that are 30 minutes, sessions up to an hour. You can purchase different packages, but I have a 10% off code, and that is UNLOCK, all lowercase, UNLOCK, UNLOCK. If you type that in when you purchase a package, you can get 10% off my services. So I just wanted to share that with you because I just got it today. Good, thank you.
Thank you, Mariko. That was a great session. Just wanted to say thank you, and thank you guys for being here. If you want to join us next week, we're going to talk about anxiety and depression, how to recognize it, and how to support our children. So you're welcome to join. And thank you, Mariko. That was very helpful.
Good, I'm glad. Thank you all so much. And takeaway message is meet your child where they are. Not every child needs to be a social butterfly. Teach them how to respond, either non-verbally or verbally, and allow them to grow in their social skills by doing all the things that we talked about today. Thank you so much.